I was scrolling through my usual morning crypto news when a headline practically jumped off the screen at me. It said something like, XRP price could hit $600. At first, I thought I must have read that wrong. $600 for one XRP coin? No way, right? For a split second, I honestly wondered if someone had slipped an extra zero in there or if it was some kind of joke. I mean, as an XRP holder who's been around the block, I've heard some wild price predictions over the years, but this one was on another level. So naturally, my curiosity went into overdrive. I clicked on the article, and what I found was both shocking and surprisingly plausible in a "this is crazy, but maybe not impossible" kind of way. It turns out this bold number, like $600, is not just a random moonshot figure someone pulled out of thin air. It comes from a pricing model that's making the rounds in the XRP community. And the reason people are taking it a bit more seriously is that it's tied to something very real happening right now: the launch of spot XRP ETFs. Yes, XRP finally has exchange-traded funds investing in it, and even though these products are brand new, they are already attracting money at an eye-popping rate. Let me set the stage here. In the past couple of weeks, several spot XRP ETFs have hit the market, and investors have been pouring in. How much money are we talking? Over the span of just 12 trading days, about $756 million flowed into these XRP funds. That is $750 million in under 2 weeks. To put that in perspective, these XRP ETFs pulled in more cash in 12 days than the Solana ETFs did in 24 days. So, XRP is essentially outpacing another hyped asset twice as fast when it comes to ETF interest. That blew my mind. And get this, on just one single day, December 1st, they attracted almost $90 million in new investments in one day. No wonder people are getting excited. In fact, last week turned out to be XRP's largest weekly inflow into crypto investment products so far, with about $289 million rolling in, largely thanks to these new funds. If you are an XRP holder like me, hearing that kind of news is like music to your ears. It is the sound of big money finally paying attention to our little coin that could. Now, seeing all this institutional capital start to line up behind XRP has everyone asking the obvious question: what is it going to do to the price? We all know that when demand for an asset soars and supply cannot keep up, the price usually heads north. But how far north could it go? That is where this pricing model comes in and why it is causing such a stir. An XRP analyst named Mohammed Bangura, shout out to him for crunching the numbers, decided to run a hypothetical scenario to see just how high XRP's price might climb if these ETFs keep buying a hefty amount of XRP every single day over a sustained period. And the results of that scenario are, well, they are wild. Before I jump into the juicy details of that model and the potential prices it is spitting out, I have got to pause for a second and make something very clear. This might shock you, but I am not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all the money you invest. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright. With that important message out of the way, let us talk about this model, because it is a fascinating look at how the balance of supply and demand could play out for XRP. So, here is the scenario Mohammed laid out. Imagine that these XRP ETFs continue to absorb about 74.5 million XRP every day from the open market. That is roughly how much they would be buying daily if the current pace of inflows continues, equating to around $149 million worth of XRP purchased per day at today's prices. Now assume this goes on consistently for 180 days, which is basically 6 months. For the sake of the model, also factor in that currently, exchanges worldwide have about 2.7 billion XRP liquid and available for trading, just an estimate for what is out there on the order books. Plus, We know that Ripple releases roughly 300 million XRP from escrow each month. This escrow release is important because it increases the supply by a bit each month, which could help replenish exchanges over time. So you have a steady increase in supply from escrow and a steady massive buyer in the form of ETFs day after day. Now, the big variable in this whole equation is something economists call elasticity. It describes how sensitive the price of XRP is to steady buying pressure given the liquidity available on the market. In plainer terms, if the market's liquidity is high and order books are thick, meaning there are lots of sell orders at various prices waiting to get filled, then even heavy daily buying might not shoot the price up dramatically. That would be a low elasticity situation where price changes are slower. On the other hand, if liquidity is thin and the order books are not deep, meaning only a limited amount of XRP is offered for sale at any given moment, then that same constant buying could start pushing the price up really fast. That is a high elasticity scenario where price is very responsive to new demand. Mohammed's model runs 3 different elasticity scenarios, one on the low end, elasticity of 0.2, one in the middle, elasticity of 0.5, and one high, elasticity of 1.0. He wanted to see, under each of these conditions, how the price of XRP might evolve over that 6-month period of relentless ETF purchasing. The differences between these scenarios are dramatic, to say the least. Scenario 1 is the low elasticity case, 0.2. In this scenario, the market is relatively slow to react to the buying pressure. Think of this as a situation where exchanges have a lot of XRP available for sale. So even though 74.5 million XRP are being bought daily, the price does not skyrocket overnight. According to the model, with elasticity this low, XRP's price would inch up steadily, but not insanely. We would see it go from roughly where it is around now, let us say about $2, to about $3 within the first month or so. Okay, $3 is not bad. That is a 50% increase in a month, which outperforms any stock index by a mile. But in crypto terms, it is not unheard of. Then, over the next couple of weeks, by around day 45, it continues climbing, hitting somewhere near $7. Now that is a big move. I am definitely not complaining about the idea of XRP at $7. At that point, however, the rise kind of levels off in the model. For most of the remaining 180-day period, XRP would hover around that mid-single-digit range, roughly staying near $7, give or take. The model does show a few dips during that time. Maybe some pullbacks, but even those dips still hold above about $3. So basically, in the low elasticity case, XRP slowly triples from $2 to $7 over about a month and a half, and then just stabilizes there with minor fluctuations. And those fluctuations never drop it anywhere near the starting point. Exchanges in this scenario are able to keep supplying XRP without the price running away too far too fast. But keep in mind, even here, by the end we are talking about a several-fold increase in price over 6 months. Not too shabby. Scenario 2 is the medium elasticity case, 0.5. Now the market reacts more strongly to the daily buying. This is like a middle ground scenario, not super thin liquidity, but not super deep either. Here, the model shows XRP's price moving up more aggressively within the first month. Instead of just $3, it rockets to around $5. That is more than double the starting price in just a month. And then things get really interesting. By about day 41, so not even a month and a half in, XRP breaks into the double digits and shoots all the way past $35 per coin. $35. At this point, early ETF buyers would be rejoicing and latecomers would be FOMOing in like crazy. The model indicates that after reaching the mid-30s, the price finds an equilibrium around there for the rest of the 180 days, so it hovers in the low 30s range, which is massive. There are some short-term pullbacks, maybe profit-taking events or mini-corrections, but even those only drop the price to just above $5 at their lowest. Think about that for a second. Even the low end of the price during those 6 months in this scenario, like the worst dip, is still above $5, which is more than double where we started. That is a price that before these ETFs, many of us would have been thrilled to see in a bull run. So the medium elasticity scenario is kind of the Goldilocks outcome, roughly $5 to $35, and then hovering around there. Scenario 3 is the high elasticity case, elasticity of 1. All right, now we get to the jaw dropper. This is the scenario where the market is extremely reactive to constant buying pressure. In other words, exchanges do not have a ton of XRP sitting on the sell side, and each buy eats away a big chunk of the order book, causing the price to sprint upward. The result, according to the model, in this high elasticity scenario, XRP would skyrocket to roughly $600 within about the first 45 days. I am not kidding. $600 per XRP. Let that sink in for a moment. From around $2 to $600 in a month and a half. If you held, say, 1,000 XRP, that would turn roughly $2,000 of value into $600,000. That is the kind of explosive move crypto old-timers reminisce about from the early days. But here, we would be talking about a top 5 market cap coin in a much more mature market. The model suggests that after hitting that $600 mark, XRP would remain in that stratospheric range for the rest of the 6 months. The price would largely stay in the high hundreds, aside from some temporary drops here and there. It might plunge toward the $20 area briefly before bouncing back up. Can you imagine the volatility on that ride? One day you're at 600, then a crash to 20, then back to 500. My nerves would be shot. But hey, those are champagne problems if you bought in early. Now, I know this all sounds absolutely bananas. Even as someone who deeply believes in XRP's long-term potential, hearing $600 in any scenario feels too good to be true. But let us break down what this model is really telling us, because it is not saying XRP will definitely hit $600. It is illustrating how sensitive the price could be to sustained, heavy buy pressure over time, under different market conditions. The key factor here is that elasticity concept. In the high elasticity scenario, basically if the order books are thin and buyers keep coming in hard, like these hypothetical ETFs buying 74 million XRP every day without fail, then the price has no choice but to shoot up dramatically, because there are not enough sell orders to fill all those buy orders without moving up to higher and higher price levels. It is supply and demand on steroids. In reality, if something like this started playing out, a few things would likely happen. First, seeing the price go vertical. A lot of holders, especially those who have been holding since way lower prices, would start selling to take profit. I mean, you would have people who bought XRP at 50 cents suddenly sitting on hundreds of dollars per coin. Even the strongest hands would think about cashing out a chunk. All that selling would increase the supply on the market and could slow down or cool off the rally. That is a natural, self-correcting mechanism. When the price spikes like crazy, more sellers show up, which can then push the price back down some. Also, if elasticity is super high and exchanges start running low on XRP to sell, we might see some of that buying shift off the exchanges. Big institutional players, like those running an ETF, will not just keep market buying into an empty order book and blast the price to the moon if they have other options. If XRP on the exchanges becomes scarce and super expensive, those funds could seek over-the-counter deals, basically buying directly from large holders or even from Ripple's escrow in private sales, to get their XRP without further driving up the public market price. The model even notes that in the high elasticity scenario, some demand would spill into OTC markets for exactly this reason. So in reality, maybe we would not see a clean $600 on the exchange tickers, because long before hitting that level, the ETF managers might say, okay, this is getting out of hand on the open market. Let us find another way to acquire XRP without pushing the price any higher. Still, the fact that the model can even produce such a figure highlights an extremely bullish point. If demand is overwhelming and exchange supply is scarce, the price can go way beyond what most people would consider reasonable, even if only temporarily. On the flip side, think back to the low elasticity case. That scenario basically shows a market where plenty of sellers are happy to unload XRP as it rises, which keeps the price moves more gradual. Maybe a bunch of investors are waiting to sell around $3, another bunch around $5, $7, etc. So all the buy pressure is met with sell pressure that prevents a huge spike. That might happen if, for instance, a lot of folks who bought at the previous peak, approximately $3, are eager to get out once they're made whole, or if short-term traders are consistently taking profits. In that case, the ETFs can accumulate a large amount of XRP without blowing the lid off the price, but they also chew through a ton of available supply to do it. The model pointed out that in the low elasticity scenario, exchanges could start running low on XRP, even though the price only rose to around $7. It sounds paradoxical, but it means behind the scenes, the liquidity was getting drained. The price didn't spike as wildly because sellers kept coming forward until perhaps they ran out. So, what do we do with all this? For me, it is equal parts exciting and sobering. Exciting because it shows how XRP could reach heights that seemed like pure fantasy. Sobering because it reminds us that such moves would come with extreme volatility and are far from guaranteed. As someone who's held XRP through a lot of ups and downs, I feel validated that institutions are finally coming into play. But I also know I need to keep my head on straight. This model got me thinking about my own game plan. If things go nuts and we even approach something like $50 or $100, do I have a strategy? Will I take some profit, or am I holding out for the long-term vision? And these are questions I believe every XRP holder should be asking themselves now, not when we're in the heat of a parabolic move. Now, I am not just daydreaming and doing nothing in the meantime. I like to stay active in the crypto space. For instance, I have been experimenting with something called Unity nodes. Quick side note. Unity nodes are basically a kind of software license you can run on everyday devices. I managed to snag one of only 200 licenses they issued initially. I have it running on 10 old phones I had, and if it works out, the team might scale it up and offer more licenses. What caught my attention is you pay for these licenses with crypto. They accept Bitcoin, Ether, Cardano ADA, and XRP. It is early and a bit technical, but I am testing it out to see if those phones can earn a little on the side by doing network tasks. It is not mainstream at all. Definitely something you'd want to research yourself if it sounds interesting. But I wanted to share what I am up to beyond just holding coins. All right, back to XRP. The bottom line is that being prepared is key. If XRP truly is headed for a big run, whether that's to $7, $35, $600 or wherever, we want to be ready. That means having our exchange accounts set up and tested, our security practices in place, and our minds clear on how we'll handle different scenarios. One thing I've done is make sure I'm on multiple exchanges, so if one goes down or has issues, I have alternatives. Actually, on that note, I have partnered with Kraken to offer you something. If you sign up to Kraken using the affiliate link on my website, it is in the description, and trade at least $100 worth of any crypto, excluding stablecoins, in the first 30 days, they will give you $25 in XRP as a bonus. It is a limited time deal to encourage folks to get prepared early and maybe snag a bit more XRP in the process. Of course, using that link also supports the channel. I earn a commission at no extra cost to you. So a big thank you if you do. Check out my site for the details and terms if you are interested. Whether or not you jump on that, the key message is get ready. If the next few months are anything like what this model suggests, it's going to be one heck of a ride, and it is always better to be prepared than caught off guard. Also, don't isolate yourself. Our free educational Discord is open for anyone who wants to discuss these things or needs help. The link is below, and it is full of knowledgeable, friendly people. We keep each other sharp and grounded there, which I find super helpful. Alright, let us wrap this up. Can XRP hit $600? Under the right conditions, maybe. Will it? That is the trillion-dollar question. What I do know is that XRP's story is far from over, and chapters like the one we're entering, with ETFs and institutional interest, could be some of the most exciting yet. I am thrilled to be on this journey with all of you, and I plan to stay level-headed no matter what happens. I am very curious to hear what you think. Do you believe a triple-digit XRP is in the cards, or do you think it is overhyped? And what's your plan if XRP really takes off? Let's chat about it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video or learned something new, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and join me next time. There is always something new, and sometimes crazy, happening in the crypto world, and I love breaking it down here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and until next time, let's keep our eyes on the horizon. Who knows? Maybe that horizon has a $600 XRP sunburst peeking over it. Take care, everyone.